það þá komin tími á að hella sér í dagskrána og það eru sem sagt fyrstir á svið Dave Hogan frá Crimson Security og Magnús Birgisson frá Miracle. En þeir hafa unnið öttulega saman og eru með svona partnership í öryggismálum. Nú Magnús hefur yfir 15 ára reynslu úr heiminum, mikla reynslu af rekstri stærri tölvukerfa úr fjármálaheiminum sérstaklega, þannig að öryggi auðvitað eitthvað sem honum í blóðborið og starfar í dag við öryggisúttektir og ráðgjöf öryggisvitund. Nú Dave Hogan hefur áratuga reynslu og hún spannar hátt í 30, þannig að það er mikið í upplýsingatækninni og unnið með fjöldamörgum fyrirtækjum bæði á einkageiranum og opinbera geiranum og þar með talið Fortune 500 fyrirtækjum, þannig að saman hafa þeir gríðarlega reynslu að leggja á borðið og ætla svona að kynna fyrir ykkur helstu öryggis- og ógnanirnar og viðbrögð við þeim. Gjörið svo vel.
Yeah, right.
By way of introductions, I'm Dave Hogan from Crimson Security, and we're already introduced. And I'll let
So Magnus Birgisson from Miracle. As you can see, it's more than a Google translation error for some reason, but this is the main idea to talk about information security. Can you hear me? No? From a C-level executive point of view, what they need to know about information security. So we have a session outline. I know that you're going to get the presentation afterwards, so I'm just going to leave it out there and then just dig in right away. The first thing we want to talk about is understanding security risks. How many of you have had a security risk assessment done on your company?
Or any kind of risk assessment.
Yeah.
Financial risk assessment, raise your hand.
Okay.
Could you keep your hands
Yep,
up? The people
please keep
who
them
are-
up.
Sorry.
So is there any one of you that didn't have any surprises during that security risk assessment?
If you didn't have any surprises, keep your hands up. If there was absolutely nothing in the risk assessment that surprised you.
I actually know that there are lots of technical people here, so the thing is that it's very likely that, you know, for the ones of you that haven't done a proper security risk assessment, that you've had, you know, that you haven't really identified your greatest risks for you as a company. Because the first thing regarding risks for a company is that you need to identify and understand what the risk is for your company, and that is basically what the goal is. What is a goal, and what are the major business processes for your company? The next, you need to define the risk, and then you need to find a way to manage the risk. Because only by understanding and identifying what the risks are, can you properly manage the goals and manage the risk, therefore. I wanted to go to, to evaluate security solutions. When you know what your risks are, you basically need to be able to find a common understanding. You have your IT team, they need to manage your goals. If they don't know, and if they're not fully aware of what your goals are for your business, they can't really protect the investment that you have.
So what we're trying to get you to understand here is that your IT guy comes to you and says, I've got this $10,000 Juniper solution that I want to implement. You have to know what the right questions are to ask. You have to know, what issue does this Juniper solution solve? What issue does this product solve as far as the risk to my organization? Is there a better, cheaper solution? And how do I evaluate whether this solution or some other solution is the better solution? How much does it actually contribute to the security of my organization versus how much is it something that's easy for the IT staff to use or something that the IT guy just knows about? it on? Versus how much is it that it's just a solution the IT guy knows about. So you have to be able to evaluate your security solutions. And the question to ask your technical person is this, explain to me how this solution solves a risk to my company? That's the key question that you have to answer.
So how do you evaluate the trade-off between security and ease of use? Okay, first of all, you just need to know that there is no perfect security. Second, when you're trying to have good security for your company, that means lack of ease of use. It's gonna be more difficult sometimes to work. You're gonna have more complex passwords, things like that. Basically, you need to evaluate how what your security posture needs to be for you as a company, depending on your business goals, and then the allowed ease of use, basically.
Right. The most common and easiest to use example is passwords. I can create a very, very secure password that's 30 characters long. It's got numbers, letters, special characters, all of that good stuff. That is the security part of this equation. If I tell my users that they have to use that 20-character password, oh, and by the way, I'm going to change it, and you have to change it every week, you can see the balance that we're trying to get you to understand. Like Magnus said, there is no perfect security, but you also can't go too far on the ease of use side. You can't just say, oh, just pick any password you want 11111, and you can keep that for a year. So there's got to be a balance there, and finding that balance in your organization is a very important thing to have to do.
Plus, it's just the fact that processing power is becoming very cheap. So those long passwords are just some hours usually to crack. So that's another big issue in this. Number 4, make IT security a part of your business decisions and solutions. For IT security, the IT people, they need to know what to protect and how to protect it. They need to be fully aware of what your business goals are. And only in that way can they sort of come close to defending you properly. When I say properly, to an extent. They need to go through a lot of things to make you more secure, but they need to know what your focus is. What is the focus of your company to protect your investment? 5, invest in employees and their skills and not just expensive technical solutions. This is very important. A lot of companies just want to buy, the do-it-all solution that is supposed to solve everything. That does not exist, and if that solution would be available, you would still need to have people with knowledge, real skills that would know how to use that, super duper solution. You can't really go any further without investing in your people. They need to know what's going on, because basically the weakest link is the person that is just oblivious to what's happening. Those are the ones that are going to be attacked. This yours?
Okay. You want me to? So I'll. Here you go. Item number 6 is being able to understand and interpret security news, security events that you hear about. There are news reports that come out all the time about the sky is falling, or this new security item, this new security incident has happened. How do you actually evaluate the importance to your organization of a news report that you see that claims the sky is falling, basically? A couple of key points to understand is try and understand what the news report is actually saying about the source of the threat. Is the source an inside employee threat? Is the source a a generic hacker threat on the internet, or is the source something very specific to your organization, to your type of business? Try and figure out if the actual threat applies to your line of business. If you're a brick and mortar merchant, you know, most internet security threats probably don't apply to you. Conversely, if you're an e-commerce merchant, you know, the threat of credit card skimmers being placed on a machine probably doesn't apply to you. So try and figure out what the threat is as far as what the news report, what the news item is talking about.
And actually, for an example, you know, all the IT security companies were getting, you know, calls for Heartbleed. You know, they knew that there was this big threat, and everyone should be aware of what was going on. The thing is, people were calling and they were asking about Microsoft IIS, and they didn't even have SSL on their websites. So this vulnerability didn't really have any effect on them. But it's just the way that you know news are, you know, come to you. You have to understand what's going on before you panic.
Item 7, the importance of disaster recovery and business continuity plans. This is a very often overlooked item in organizations. This is basically your backup plan. This is basically your insurance plan. And a lot of companies don't spend the time to do this right because, of course, nobody thinks that a disaster is going to happen to them. But it's very important that you get this right. It's very important that you do this properly. The purpose of this is you don't want to have people in the event of a disaster. You don't want to have people running around wondering what to do. The purpose of a disaster recovery is to shorten the time between when the incident happens and when you can recover from it. Because for almost all businesses, the length of that time is directly proportional to how much money your company is going to lose. So if a disaster happens and it takes you 2 days to get back up and running, that's 2 days of lost productivity, that's 2 days of lost income. If you can shorten that time to 6 hours instead to your business, that's a very valuable plan.
Yeah, in the same way, you know, when you panic, you're up on stage and you can't really remember what you were going to say from your slides. You know, you should have a checklist. The slides are notes. You can look at your notes. In the same way, you have, you know, pilots have a checklist. Astronauts have a checklist. People going to the grocery store have a checklist. Shouldn't you as a company have the same? Just, you know, protect your investment.
Item number 8, the idea of starting with major security projects and roll them out globally. There's a well-known adage about a professor who goes in to his class with a big bowl with big rocks in it, and he asks the class, "Is this bowl full?" And everybody says yes. And so he takes out a thing of small pebbles and he pours it into the bowl. And he goes, "No, you were wrong. Now is this bowl full?" And they go, "Yes." And he takes out a big bag of sand and pours it into the bowl. And he goes, "Now is this bowl full?" You get the idea. You start big, and then you can drill down into the details as you go along. If you apply security policies and practices globally, if you say, globally, this is my password policy, globally, this is my physical security policy, and you implement that, then you can have organizations or departments come back to you and say, "We need an exception to this global policy. This is why." And then you can drill down and decide whether that exception applies or whether that's effective for that particular organization. Start globally, start big, and then drill down into the small stuff.
And this is actually the same thing. It has to do with another item as well, but you know, you have to, when you invest in your people skills, you are, you know, you try to add to a you're using combined brain power to, attack the problem, with more security awareness, with more training, with people being more aware of what's going on, you'll have more brain power to protect yourself or your company from the threats that are really there.
Item 9. A very important one to me and that I've seen. With everything in your business, examples start from the top. I've seen too many examples of executives, managers who implement or put out a security policy, security requirements, but they make themselves exempt from that particular security requirement. You have a manager that says, your passwords must be X number. I keep using passwords again because it's the most common problem. Your passwords must be 10 characters long in the company. But then they go to the IT guy and they go, hey, can you, put an exception for me, for my passwords? If your employees know that you as the top executive or you as a manager are exempt from this particular policy, they're going to look at that policy and think, probably not that important. And so getting them to enforce that policy or getting them to pay attention to that policy becomes a lot more difficult. If you're going to require something of your employees, the best thing to do is to lead by example, is to follow that policy yourself. If you're following that policy and an employee is breaking that policy, you have every right in the world to say, if it applies to me, it darn sure should apply to you. The last one along the same lines is, we say, with great access comes great responsibility. Again, we have executives, managers that, for whatever reason, insist on having global access, global rights to things that they do not need access to or rights to. They want administrative privileges on all the systems. They want badge access to all the doors, that sort of thing. If you do this, realize that you as an executive, you as a manager are a target. And most likely, your information is out there. Your email address is out in the public. Your profile is on LinkedIn. A hacker is going to know your name. He's going to know your email address. You are going to be the focus of his attacks. If you have elevated privileges, if you have elevated rights in your organization, if you have administrative rights, if for some reason that hacker gets access to your email address and can log into your inbox or can log in using your credentials, you have now given that hacker administrative rights to your organization. So you're an executive, yes, but you do not need to have full rights, administrative rights to systems and physical facilities. Only get the rights that you need and realize that you are a target of hackers because of who you are, because your information is out there.
Which was basically an example, the CEO, his information is publicly available. That's the case at least in Iceland and in most of the world. It's very easy to send an email to the CEO, get remote access to his computer, start just behaving like the CEO. Nothing is going to be challenged because you're the boss. You should, be allowed to do this and that is basically what you're saying to your, employees. I am the CEO, I can do everything, so please restrict your access. You don't want to be the threat, basically, to your own company, because you're going to be the target for all the hackers that want to get into your company.
Yeah. We've got a minute. Any questions? Comments? No? If you've got any questions or you think of anything, please email us, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.